everyone, this is Priya from It's Okay Yaar, and today we are going to be covering a very important question that we keep getting but there are no clear answers about. The question is it possible to have an LLC on H1B visa? And to answer that, we have Sonal Sharma with us from Sharma Law Associates. So Sonal, the big question, like I mentioned, can I have an LLC on H1B if I'm already having an existing job and a company that has actually sponsored my H1B?
So the short answer is yes.
Okay.
You can have an LLC. You can't just be involved with operations of the company. So when you're on H1B visa, it is tied with an employer. If you want to work with another employer, you need a second H1B as a concurrent H1B. Now, it is possible to work with your own company, but there is a process that has to be followed, because there has to be an employer-employee relationship to be on H1B visa with an employer. So if you are the owner of the company and you want to work, then technically there is no employer-employee relationship because you're your own employer in that case. But there is a way to create an employer-employee relationship, which is generally done through having a board which has the authority to hire and fire you. Basically, if you are working for your own company, somebody else should have the authority to fire you from your own company. In that situation, you will be able to work for your company. But if you do not want to work for your company and just be a passive investor, then yes, you can have a company registered in your name as a passive investor while you are an H1B working with some other employer. You can just not be involved in operations of the company in that case.
Okay, so just so that I fully understand it, if I am working for someone today who has sponsored my H1B, I open an LLC. If I want to actively work for that company, I need a concurrent H1B to actively work. If I am just going to have that LLC, as long as I have someone else running the operations, that's totally fine. Then I don't need a concurrent H1B, I don't need any of that, and we can continue just having it as long as someone is running. But if I want to work for it, then I want to make sure that there is a board, I have a concurrent H1B. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So you just have to make sure there is no unauthorized work going on.
Okay.
When you're on H1B, any work that you're doing for money has to be authorized. On H1B, that work authorization comes from being attached to an employer who is filing your H1B. If you are opening a company and working for it, that is an unauthorized work, because you don't have authorization for it for that particular company, because your H1B is tied to another employer. So if you do want to work for your own company while working with the already employer, then you need to have a concurrent H1B with the entity. So in corporate world, company is a separate entity. So you can have that H1B with the company as long as you're able to establish employer-employee relationship. Now that has to be done through proper corporate compliance paperwork.
Got it. And if you don't know anything about concurrent H1B, basically concurrent H1B, you can do 2 jobs on H1B. We have a detailed video about that I will link in the description box, so definitely check that out. But just to close, Sonal, when you mentioned concurrent H1B, if I'm already putting 40 hours with my employer on my first H1B, can I also put another 40 hours with the second employer? Are there any rules or guidelines around that, or how does that work?
Well, there is no specific regulatory amount that is mentioned that you can only work these many hours. But from common sense perspective, generally it is very difficult for you to show that you're working 80 hours a week, Monday to Friday, concurrently at 2 jobs.
Correct.
So generally people go for a part-time job on a concurrent H1B, because then it is much easier for you to show how you are allocating time between 2 jobs if you're doing the second job as a part-time job.
And do I need to inform my first employer that I have a second H1B and I do a part-time job?
Well, not really, but then I think you also have to be mindful about the employment contract that you have, and the employment contracts are basically state laws. So it will differ from state to state, so you have to be careful. So you basically cannot like have something which is against your contract law
Yeah.
and it's state law regulated, so there is a little bit of complication of that. As long as you're aware of that and you're clear of that, there is no regulatory requirement of informing your current employer about the second concurrent H1B.
Yeah, but if you are working with an employer and your contract, they're very clear that you can't work with certain kind of companies and stuff like that, then you don't want to get into that.
Yes. So if there is certain clauses which says that if you're working with us full time, you cannot work and you've signed it, then you better be careful about it.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful, and I hope this answered 2 of your questions, even though I started with 1. But if things are not working or going your way, remember it's okay, Yaar, and things will turn around. This is Priya signing off. Have a wonderful day.